right. So good morning, Flagler County. This is Danielle Anderson, your host of Lifeline, the radio show connecting you to positivity in our community. And we have clearly a rock star in the house today. We have Dr. David Gay back in Flagler County. So thanks for coming in, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
All right, you have to say more stuff than that.
I'm glad to be back.
That's cool. So, everybody I've told that you're coming on the show this week has been like, oh my gosh, he's back. Oh my gosh, he's my doctor. For those of us who haven't met you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So as far as being in Flagler County, I actually relocated to this area approximately 15 years ago, and I was with AdventHealth for about a decade.
What do you do?
So I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and so basically specialize in disorders of the shoulder, elbow, and wrist.
Oh.
So mostly upper extremity type stuff. Relocated here directly from Australia. But I had previously lived up in Jacksonville, so I was very familiar with the area. So that was quite a long time ago, about 15 years ago, moved from Australia to here. I was in Australia doing part of my training, and then prior to that was in New York City, and then prior to that was in Jacksonville, Florida. So I kind of was very familiar with the area and wanted to return to the coastal southeast. So I had met with Advent, and a great opportunity arose, so I came here quite some time ago.
So, okay, now we have to talk about, how did you go to all those amazing cities? Are you from Jacksonville?
No, actually from Charleston, South Carolina.
Even cooler.
Yeah, so another great city. Went to med school in South Carolina, and then through the residency match program, ended up in Jacksonville at University of Florida at the program up there for orthopedic surgery. And then I had decided I wanted to specialize in elbow, shoulder, upper extremity surgery. And so went to Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, which is in Manhattan on the Upper East Side, which is a very prestigious hospital affiliated with Cornell. Takes care of a lot of the sports athletes, and it's actually the biggest orthopedic hospital in America.
Wow.
So I was there for 1 year, and then an opportunity arose to go to Australia for 6 months. And at that time, my daughter had just been born, so I decided it was now or never, because once they get into school and do things like that, it's really hard to do those type of activities. So we moved to Melbourne, Australia for 6 months, and I did additional training in shoulder and elbow there. And then after that, I returned back to Flagler County.
So, thinking about shoulder and wrist and things, what got you into it? Because the screaming football.
Surprisingly not, I'm definitely a football fan, but that's definitely not what got me into it. I think a lot of it, being interested in that specialty, is the variety. Orthopedics is primarily the focus of disorders of the joints, bones, and tendons of the body. And there's a huge demand for hip and knees, especially in an older community. People have pathologies that lead to the need for knee and hip replacements. And in my mind, that got a little redundant because you're doing a lot of the same thing. And there was a little more variety in the upper extremity. One day you may be doing a broken wrist, and one day you may be doing a shoulder replacement, and then you may be doing some other type of procedure. So that was really the appeal to me. I actually tell people I'm a geriatric sports medicine doctor, because a lot of the injuries I see are either from pickleball, tennis, cycling. I've been a huge cyclist my whole life, and so very connected to the cycling community. And actually, Palm Coast has done a phenomenal job with the bike trails, the mountain bike trails. And then I see, the slight downside of that are the injuries that come with it. So a lot of collarbone fractures, a lot of shoulder injuries. If you have an accident on a bicycle and you go over the handlebars, you're likely to land on your shoulder. So
they're keeping you employed.
They are definitely keeping me employed, but the benefits outweigh the risks for sure. So I'm glad people are out there doing those type of things. And then I've always been involved in surfing as well, which that's a great sport here at Flagler. They hold the Tommy Tant contest almost every year out at the pier. We've always tried to be involved in that. And as you get older, it does take a little toll on your body. All the paddling and duck diving with surfing, over time, you can have some issues. So I see a lot of active 50-year-old surfers, which is great because I see them out in the water and then I see them in the office. So it's really cool being able to see people like that. So
do they ever start talking shop when you guys are out there in the break and you're just
always,
like, dude,
always.
come on?
Now, for me, I like what I do, so it's not bad. I don't mind people coming up and going, hey, I saw you the other day, my shoulder's better or worse, or hey, I need to come see you, that type of thing. It's always best when they're out there doing great after some, treatment or something, and they're back surfing and it's kind of very enjoyable to see them, getting them back to doing the things they like to do.
That is so cool. I'm like, I would not have thought surfing and cycling.
Yeah.
So are you like a road bike guy or are you like a gravel guy or
Well,
mountain bike?
interesting. All of the above. So yeah, really like mountain biking. I've always been a big road cyclist, triathlete. As I've gotten older, I seem to have slowed down quite a bit, so I don't do it quite as much as I used to. But it's always been a big part of my life. So, the Graham Swamp trails here in Palm Coast are phenomenal, especially for Florida trails. I think it's kind of a hidden gem, right off Colbert Boulevard or Avenue, whichever it is.
Colbert Lane. Yeah,
Lane.
actually,
There you go.
the Graham Swamp 360 is coming up in
Yeah,
March.
yeah. Actually, that is coming up soon. So they have that every year, which is a really cool race. And then some of the guys that I ride with on occasion, we'll do the Malacompra to Graham Swamp Loop and back,
Sweet.
which is 30-something miles. So, depending on how you do it. But, but yeah, it's my exercise to try to keep myself in shape. So.
That's cool. So I actually run the Spoonbills and Sprockets cycling tour
do
for
you?
A1A.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's on the same day as the Graham Swamp. And I was like, oh man. But it's kind of cool because, it's two different kinds of riders and terrain. So it's like,
Well, I figured you must have been involved in it when you said gravel bike. That's not something that most people know about unless they're kind of in the community or whatever. So,
well, I met this really cool guy. His name is Carlos, and he runs there's a Gravelondo they used to do here. And then he does all these cool mountain bike events that go across the state. And it's kind of like an underground community.
I think that might be the Gravel Underground or something like that.
It's really cool. But yeah, his name is Carlos something, but it's very cool. And then, people come from all over the country to do these like mapped out things, and it's self-sustaining. So, all you can do is backpack and, sleep out on the trail, but you have to, totally do your own way. There's no like support stag or any of that.
Well, I totally get that. When I was in college, an opportunity came up to bike across the U.S.
Oh, wow.
Which I did. And it was actually kind of funny because I thought they were actually talking about driving a car across the U.S. So two of my buddies were like, hey, you want to travel across the U.S. this summer? I'm like, yeah, I don't have anything going on. I'll do that. About 2 weeks later, I discovered we're talking about doing it on bicycles. And I'm like, well, I've already agreed to it. Let's do it.
One of those friends wasn't Jake Scully, was it?
No. That's why I wasn't around here. So we ended up riding from Seattle, Washington to Boone, North Carolina one summer during college. So I get the fully supported, doing it on your own. It's
awesome.
pretty cool. So.
Man, that's awesome. You're like, how do you even like spend a day in the office and you're so like outdoors?
It can be hard at times.
I bet. So like, what made you decide you wanted to come back to Flagler? Because like everybody's stoked you're here.
So I didn't go far. I mean, I was actually working in St. Augustine. I'd been at Advent for a decade. An opportunity came up to take over the orthopedic department up at Flagler Hospital and be the orthopedic director. So myself and a couple other surgeons that were here locally ended up transferring to Flagler Hospital up in St. Augustine. And then they went through a lot of change, and they were bought out by UF, and a lot of things changed. And I'd always had a good relationship with AdventHealth, even when I wasn't here, and actually stayed in contact with many of the doctors and administrators. And so it was the right time to kind of come back. They have the great new hospital up at the Parkway, and which is closer to where I live. So once that opportunity arose, I decided to come back here and just got started up about 2 months ago. There's a little transition period where getting new offices set up and that type of thing took a little while. But now we're up and running up at the new hospital, so it's been great.
You're at the Parkway. What do you think about like all the new equipment and just how beautiful that hospital is?
Yeah, it's a great hospital. I mean, especially the operating rooms that most people don't get to see are just, fully loaded with every new piece of equipment you could have for the stuff I do. It's great. It's, everything I need.
That's incredible. And, we've got a friend of ours a mutual friend who writes about all these incredible robotics things. Do you incorporate any of that stuff into your work?
I do. That actually is a little more kind of developed in the general surgery, urology, and then lower extremity orthopedic world. So a lot of people are familiar with the Stryker Mako system, which is a specific robot that's being used at the Palm Coast Hospital down here on 100. But they are in the process of rolling out upper extremity applications. So I currently use a robotic assisted type surgery where you take a CAT scan, which is basically a 3-dimensional x-ray. And from that, the computer creates a 3D model in space while you're doing the shoulder replacement so that you can actually see where the screws are going into the bone behind your field of visualization. It's pretty impressive. It's kind of like the first generation of robotic surgery. And then the second generation is where you have assistance from robotic arms and that type of thing, more similar to what the Da Vinci systems are doing with general surgery and neurology. Orthopedics is headed in that direction, but for certain reasons, ours are slightly different. But yeah, it's great seeing all these new innovations coming out, and Advent's grabbing hold of that and putting them into hospitals, and we're rolling out some of that stuff up at the new hospital pretty soon. So it'll be great.
So what are some of the most challenging things for you as like an orthopedic surgeon?
The most challenging thing. That's
Yeah,
a
like
very
what's
hard
the
question.
hardest one you've ever like?
You mean like surgery wise?
Yeah.
Oh, surgery wise. I can still remember like my first or second year, I was at the hospital on 100, and there was an individual that got hit by a car and absolutely destroyed his shoulder, like 6 fractures. I ended up doing a 6 or 7 hour surgery.
Whoa.
And of course it was during my, what we call our board certification collection, which is where you then have to go present those to the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery. So that got picked as one of my 10 cases I had to present, and I'm presenting it, and I'm like, oh, you're all nervous because you're waiting on your board certification, and it's like a 20-minute production of presenting this case, and everybody was like, wow, that guy lived through that? That's amazing, So to date, that was probably still the hardest surgery I think I've ever done. Plates and screws everywhere, hours and hours of reconstructing his shoulder. Turned out great. I actually saw him biking a couple years ago. So
That's incredible.
Yeah, he's still out there riding. So yeah. So some of them can be a little more difficult than others. You kind of want your surgeon thinking it's a relatively mundane every day I do this type thing, because then they're very comfortable doing it, obviously. But no matter who you are, any surgeon gets thrown these loops that are much more difficult on occasion.
See, I would get nervous if my surgeon was like, "Oh, this is no problem," because I'd be like, "Dude, I want you on your toes, like talking to God. Let's be right on it."
Might be a good thing. That means he's comfortable doing it.
So, is there any challenges you're looking forward to, or you would like to tackle in what you do?
I do think the advancement in robotic surgery and orthopedics is something that I'm very looking forward to. It's got a long way to go. I mean, every little incremental step is another improvement along a long line of improvements. So I'm very excited about that. We get a lot of questions about stem cell therapy and those type of things, and those are all the wave of the future. It's just figuring out the details. I don't think we're quite there yet on many of those therapies, but we're getting there. And so orthopedics is, billions and billions of dollars a year spent on just arthritis treatment, and trying to find preventative solutions or simple resolutions to those problems. I think it's going to be interesting the next decade or two.
So we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about who's an ideal patient for you. We'll be right back. Doing okay?
Yeah.
right on.
Try not to be too redundant. You start going, well, I can already talked about that, but I don't want to, so.
So this will be like
So this is recorded but played like tomorrow? Or?
So it'll come on Saturday morning at 9 a.m.
Oh, Saturday morning. Okay.
Yep. So all you guys out there listening, is Saturday morning, 9 a.m. That's when we're going to have Dr. Gay on the radio, but you're getting to see him today, right now. This is live.
Oh, okay. That's
on
how you do
Facebook.
it. Oh, got you. All right. Wasn't sure, what was live and what wasn't. So.
Oh, yeah. So we're back with Dr. David Gay. He's an AdventHealth orthopedic surgeon. And so we just talked about stem cell. Is that something that you work with, or what's under your umbrella?
Yeah, so basically I do non-operative as well as operative treatment of upper extremities disorders. Now that may mean cortisone injections, physical therapy, PRP, which is basically platelet-rich plasma, where we take healing factors out of your blood and then apply those to certain areas for certain reasons, as well as extending into surgical treatment, arthroscopic rotator cuff surgery, arthroscopic surgery of the elbow, shoulder replacement surgery, carpal tunnel surgery. So everything from, the minor, you need a little physical therapy, to you need a shoulder replacement. So
it's not just surgery that you're doing; it's all those pieces.
Yeah, I actually like the process of like kind of going through and finding out what's wrong and trying A, B, or C, and then if that doesn't work, then you proceed to surgery. So yeah, I do it all.
So talk about the cortisol shots and things like that. Is that the chicken fat thing?
No. So cortisone is actually just a steroid injection. It's like an anti-inflammatory injection. It's a medication. I think you're thinking of the rooster comb type medicine that they use for knee replacements, or knee injections, actually. So there's different brands, and originally it was derived from a rooster comb, and it's a treatment for moderate arthritis of the knee. Now, unfortunately, it's not been FDA approved for any upper extremity. Has not seen the outcomes have not been as good for upper extremity arthritis as they are for knee, which is why it's not covered by insurance. It's not. So that would be called an off-label use, where it's not approved. You can still do it, but your insurance isn't going to pay for it. So yeah. So not that's really not in my realm, but I'm familiar with it.
You know what it is.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
is it bursitis that you're
So usually bursitis or tendonitis of the shoulder is probably what you're most commonly using a cortisone shot for. So that is either the bursa itself, which is a little fluid-filled sac essentially that kind of protects your tendons, gets inflamed, or the tendon underneath it gets inflamed. That can be used. It can be caused by overuse injuries, mild trauma or accident. More prevalent as you get older because some of the endurance of the muscles predispose you to that, the loss of endurance of the muscles. And then the cortisone shots are given sparingly just to kind of decrease the inflammation.
So as we age, are there things that we could be doing to kind of help prevent having to come and see you?
Actually, yeah. You know, it's funny. I have a friend who wants to write a book of like the 2 things that every specialist says that would make you live longer and live healthier, which is actually a pretty clever idea. So he came to me and he's like, what would be the 2 things that you would recommend? And really the 2 things I recommend for your shoulder, as you get older, the things that are really bad are pull start engines, because you're using your rotator cuff to start the engine, and then every once in a while that pull start catches, and that's actually a way you can tear your rotator cuff.
When you give it that yank, and
That
it
big
gets stuck.
yank, and then it gets stuck, and your muscles are continuing, and they just pull off the bone. I've actually seen that numerous times. And then trimming trees. So people always want to use these pole saws that have a long lever arm, and the tree gives way, the limb gives way, and then you're supporting that with a extra long lever arm that puts a lot of strain on your shoulder and can lead to rotator cuff tears. Leave that tree trimming up to the professionals. They know what they're doing.
I mean, I thought you would have said like pickleball or some
No.
sport or
See,
something.
but there's good sides to those things. You know, pickleball, tennis. There's benefits to all that. You can pay somebody to trim your trees. You know.
Oh my goodness,
So.
that you're gonna like the tree trimmer's gonna be super busy after the show. So, are we wearing ourselves out by doing these sports? I mean, you think about it, you are.
You know, I mean, other than the accidents, you're not. You know, there originally was some concern about that, you know, increased activity accelerated arthritis, and that's all really been kind of shown to not be true. So people age, well, at least their joints age at different degrees. I tell people arthritis is kind of like gray hair. If you live long enough, you're going to get some. You know, some people may get more gray hair at 50 or 60, and others may not get it till 80. Arthritis is kind of like that. You have kind of a predisposed rate of development of arthritis, and then any accident or trauma may accelerate that in that one particular joint, as far as like osteoarthritis goes. But everyday use doesn't seem to really accelerate that. I mean, you know, I tell people like my goal is to keep you out there doing the things you want to do, not tell you to not do those things. So I'm always encouraging, you know, pickleball, tennis, swimming, cycling, whatever your activity is, go for it.
It kind of seems like it loosens that stuff up, right?
Yeah, and it really strengthens the muscles around the joints, and that's really probably where the benefit is. So, you know, the load is more efficiently supported by the muscles, and so the joint surfaces themselves are not taking quite the load as if you're in shape. And you'll see that a lot with lower extremity stuff. A lot of the lower extremity guys, knee and hip guys, will recommend therapy to, you know, support the muscles that surround the joint, and can actually eliminate some of the discomfort.
So what kind of stuff are you using? Like if you had to do like a whole replacement, what are the materials? And
So yeah, they're pretty much plastic and metal. It hasn't changed that much in the 30 or 40 years. Some of the designs have changed, the technology and kind of the mechanics of it, but the actual materials are pretty much cobalt chrome, which is a metal that can be very highly polished. And then plastic, it's a very special polyethylene plastic that's hardened. They basically make the ball on the socket. They make up the artificial joint.
how long does it last once you've done one?
The ones that we were putting in 10 years ago were lasting about 10 to 12 years. We're hoping the ones that we're doing now are much, much longer. There have been some significant improvements just in the design of some of the implants. And so I think that's making a big difference in longevity. You know, we want to be reaching the point where they last 30, 40 years,
Right.
you know, especially in the shoulder revision where we have to go back and redo it. It's much more complicated in the shoulder than other areas because there's not as much bone to work with. Your thigh bone is a lot bigger than your shoulder bone. So that can lead to some problems. So longevity is something they're always investigating to improve.
Okay, so this is probably weird, but are you guys not like you're in the lab like 3D printing these pieces and kind of sticking them in there?
Not yet, but they're actually doing some stuff with that. So, the argument there is always, well, if we're taking an image of a very arthritic shoulder and making a 3D image, well, that doesn't help. We want a good shoulder to be making it. And I think the focus right now is taking that deformed shoulder that you have because of the arthritis and then recreating a 3D printed implant specifically for you in a good version.
That's what I was wondering. Can you tailor them specific to the body?
Not quite yet. I mean, there are some what they call personal specific implants, but that's kind of, people are trying and looking at stuff like that. We're not quite there yet.
You'll see it in the next few years, though, probably, right?
Probably will. I think they're doing some in the hips and knees. They're already looking at some of that stuff. So, yeah, I think it's always figuring out how to make it work. Ideally, how do you kind of create that implant that looks like the shoulder should 25 years ago? Because you're looking at an image of it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely something coming down the road, most likely.
And we're talking like recovery time. People are often scared to get it done because they don't want to affect their life. I mean, what's it like?
Well, there's some truth to that. There are a couple shoulder surgeries that do take quite a bit of time to get over. You may have heard people having rotator cuff surgery, and it is a long recovery. I mean, I tell my patients it's 6 months and you're 90% better. It takes a long time for that type of surgery because you're actually repairing the physical body parts, which take a long time to heal instead of replacing them. So you go through a 3-month healing process, and then you have to strengthen all those muscles, which is another 3 months. And you can't get too aggressive too early or you re-injure it. So I would say out of all the surgeries that I do, that is the one that I hear the most complaints of. This took forever to get over, which it does. Like, everybody wants to think that they heal quicker than the average person, but unfortunately we all heal about at the same rate. So it takes a long time. Shoulder replacements, they do seem to recover a little bit quicker. You're not actually waiting for tissues of the body to heal back together like you are with a rotator cuff repair. You're replacing them with plastic and metal. And so a lot of those heal much quicker than even a rotator cuff surgery, which seems like a smaller surgery. But it's more because you're replacing things instead of repairing them.
Do you love what you do?
I do. I totally love what I do. Yeah. It's awesome seeing the patients come back and feel better and, being back to their activity, whatever that is. And it's great. So
how long will you do this like forever and just...
I don't know. I'm always torn between loving my job and loving my sports outside of work. So, I love to surf and sail and cycle and, I do enjoy my free time. So I'm always torn between the two, but I'll be doing this for many more years.
Okay. It seems like you're really glad to be back in Flagler and working with the people again.
Oh, it's great. It's a great community. I really do like the fact that, the majority of individuals in Flagler County just want to get out and have fun and enjoy their day-to-day life, whether that, like I said, surfing or pickleball or whatever they're doing. I do enjoy it.
So one piece of advice for our listeners, besides don't trim your own trees.
Oh, wow. Don't get in an accident, but that's hard. Not, no one ever plans on getting in an accident,
right.
So
like wrap yourself in Charmin or something like that.
Take some risk, but be willing to, pay the consequences, I guess. Luckily medicine has gotten pretty good and we can repair most things, just not everything.
That's awesome. So how can people find you if they wanted to get more in touch? Or
yeah, so I'm actually at the new Advent Hospital up on the Parkway. I'm at 3 AdventHealth Way, Suite 250. Brand new office in the medical office, which is just adjacent to the hospital on the second floor, or they can call the office 232-9487. That's area code 386.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in. I know you have a busy day, and we really appreciate it.
Oh, no, I appreciate it.
All right. So we want to thank Flagler News Weekly, WNZF News Radio, the Vigilante Philanthropists, Massage by Natalie and Company, and also our Benjamin Moore Paint Store here for sponsoring the show. And we'll catch